Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar series, Impactful Careers in Soil Regeneration. Today we are on webinar 3, Revolutionizing Tobacco Farming with Soil Health. As always, we love to see where you guys joining today. So type in the chat, where are you connecting from? And we want to see if finally we achieved the North Pole or South Pole. Who knows? This is the only one we are missing, right, Elaine? We are still hoping to get folks there. So for the webinar today, in Impactful Career in Soil Regeneration, Webinar 1 and Webinar 2 are available for replay, so you can watch as many times as you want. There is tons of information. It's always good to review and take notes, and you can access both in our website, webinar.soilfoodweb.com. The first webinar was with Nick Pedwick, and he talked with us about his amazing experience and how to scale up regenerative farming practices. Webinar 2, which was last week, we heard from Ib Barup, his experience also as a farmer and inventing devices to make our life easier. I highly encourage you to watch the replay and chat with us. We love to hear how these webinars are impacting your life. Today, we have the honor to have Renald Flores, who is a soil food web consultant, and he's going to talk about Havana tobacco farming on the webinar 3, Revolutionizing Tobacco Farm with Soil Health. Please do not forget that next week we have the last webinar of this series, Ecological Land Care, the Consultant's Playbook with Todd Harrington. Just remember that will be in a different day of the week. It will be Wednesday, and it's 9 a.m. Pacific time, but 5 p.m. London time. America is leaving the daylight saving time, so make sure to put the reminder on your calendar to not lose the webinar. Okay, let's review the instructions. You will be muted for the duration of the webinar to ensure that everyone is going to have a good audio quality. Please enter your questions to the panelists in the Zoom Q&A session. Is it located on the black bar at the bottom of your Zoom window? If you don't have this Q&A session, make sure to update your Zoom for the next webinar. And always have fun and chat with all the attendees in the chat. We also have our amazing staff helping us send you the links if needed and support in the chat. Enjoy the webinar as well. So today's topic, it's with Renald Flores, where he's going to talk about how he's revolutionizing tobacco farming with soil health. We're going to have about 10 minutes of introductions. Then we're going to hear from Renald for about 45 minutes. Then 5 minutes on our October offer and follow up for the 1 hour of Q&A. We will be together for about 2 hours. And our panelists for the day, Dr. Elaine, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started all of this, and now everyone's carrying forward with it as well. So it's a really good feeling to know we've gone from soil science professors at universities saying bacteria and fungi don't do anything. They're just there. Better to get rid of them because then they're not taking nutrients away from your plants. And no wonder they were getting severe problems with pests and diseases and all those sorts of things. So starting that search for what is it that nature does? It's got to be part of this in some way. It's fun going through some of those initial papers and reading that thought of how you figure out, are these organisms important what do they do for your plants, and then realizing that the plants are doing things to give food back to the microorganisms in the root system. And microorganisms in that root system do things to make sure that the below and above parts of those plants are just waiting for the good news to come along with the top-notch, super-duper food sources that we need to, oh gosh, we've got a lot of work trying to figure out that last, is this one good for your bacteria, or is it bad for your fund? Whatever it is, we've got work to do. So don't ever think we're finished up now, because we've only begun. But that means we will always have growers. We will always have people who are interested in the latest knowledge, because it will reduce the cost of growing healthier plants, healthier people. It just rebounds on themselves. So let's get going. See what new things we can be showing you here.
Awesome. Thank you, Elaine. Renald?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm Renald, born French. Nobody's perfect, I've been starting this whole journey nearly 10 years ago, and I humbly recognize that, Elaine and the Soil Food Web has brought an extra light in my tunnel. So that means I decided to switch from private banking industry to actually do something about something I was actually worrying about. The initial question was like, can we actually have self-sustainable systems? And then later the questions became, what are these plants needing? And then, of course, here I made a very straightforward bridge toward soil microbiology and soil health. So I've been around the world working and then discovering the best practices in this regard. As you guys know, the current way we do agriculture is pretty extractive. I'd say mining the soil like we actually do for actual mining. And from that on, I've been reading a lot of science and then applying it to actual agronomic context, which is what the farmer needs. Indeed, at that stage, we can proudly say that we are proposing hands-on solutions to farmers, and then on our side at Flores System, we're really focusing on large scale, because we think and we believe that if we dare having a human community worldwide which is sane and then healthy and all these kind of things, we need to also have a massive amount of food which is produced on a healthy way. That includes like understanding soil and then understanding the relationship between microbes and then our crops. So from that on, it's kind of a 10 years journey. We have the whole, we call that the full toolbox. So we can actually offer solutions. And to conclude, like just real quick here, indeed, this job became a full part of my own personal identity. I would say I'm completely immersed in this world of relationship, plants, microbes, and at the end of it, it's about human health. So this is what I could say.
Thank you, Renald. Nick?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Nick Padwick, and I'm a farmer in the UK. I've just celebrated my 43rd harvest, and it was probably the wettest harvest I think I've experienced in my career. I've been fortunate enough to be involved with the Soil Food Web for, since 2021, when I saw a video of Dr. Elaine, and I wasn't getting I was damaging all my soils producing food, and I kind of had enough of that, and I really wanted to make a change. And Dr. Elaine was kind of the only person that was actually doing something about it. So I jumped onto the foundation course, which took me a year to complete. And then I was hooked. So jumped onto my microscope course, and then the training course to be a consultant. From that, I've just set up my own business, Wild Soils, and I'm supporting and helping farmers and growers in the UK and in other parts of the world, and just having a great time.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. And I'm your host for today. I start to work with Dr. Elaine in Soil for Web School in 2019 and fall in love. It was really the piece of the big puzzle everyone have in their life, which allows me to help be the bridge between what academia is doing and how can we translate this in easy actions that we can really do in the field and change things, right? Not just discuss the theory and plan in the future, someone will come and do it. We don't have that luxury anymore. So I'm very, very fortunate to be a mentor for the school and also the research lead, and just see the students' eyes sparkling when things make sense and they easily see how they're going to apply that in the field. It's a no-brainer that I found my place. I also have my consultancy company working in regen ag and also environmental impact assessments and recovery, which is my second passion. So okay, the system, come on, computer. Awesome. Without any further ado, Renald, you should be able to share your screen and start your presentation.
Yes, of course. Give me a couple of seconds.
Take your time.
I'm gonna screen that up. Right. I think we should be ready. Let me see. So I guess it's already screened up. You guys can see, or hold on. Can you see the screen?
We see your screen, but slide by slide. You just need to expand the presentation.
All right, let's go there. All right, hold on a second. There. So here we go. Can you guys see?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. So basically, we've studied fluorescent systems 10 years ago with a very strong focus of how do we transfer the whole science of microbiology and soil health for actual applied agronomic solutions for farmers. To a certain degree, it's about saying that transferring the jargon, the scientific jargon, into a farmers-friendly language. That's now 10 years that we are doing this. We also, in this whole journey, we found out that it was very important to have a common base in terms of language and understanding with the farmers. So we have been advising, educating, and then leading those projects. So we make sure that we have an actual alternative in terms of agronomic knowledge for the farmers, because most of universities are not yet providing for this data and this education for the farmers. And as of today, then, as you guys know, we have a strong trend in what they call regenerative agriculture. So we also have a pretty decent portfolio of projects and producers that can offer this kind of product based on very strong agronomic knowledge and capacities. This is the main four fields where we work. So we have, of course, the soil and the microbes at heart and at the core, but we are capable and skilled and experienced to work with these four main fields that just like are showing what is agriculture in its way. So we've been transitioning systems from conventional to regenerative, and we're gonna go ahead with this little project that we had with tobacco. For that, that's the whole kit that we offer, from a soil health perspective, then to a project design necessities, as much as providing the farmers with more autonomy in terms of all the biofertilizers that is needed as a starter to start the transition itself. We talk about microbiologically loaded compost and also compost brewers design and machinery at any scale, and along with a very, very meaningful agronomic training package that we include in our offer, and then to a later stage offering as well solutions for valuing farm residues to produce beautiful pharmaceutical, medicinal, and cosmetic and fungi for this industry. So starting here, the main thing that we usually engage with farmers is asking them, like, for how many years have you been actually doing this conventional story, and how much money and how much of these NPK, for just to mention that, have you been putting out in your soil? How much money did you actually invested in, well, we could actually say degeneration? This is a very interesting question, because indeed it also this opens the door to the next step, which is like how much money are you now willing to invest in actually regenerating your soils? And here the beauty of it is that it's actually a one shot. When you come in and then you start regenerating soil health, microbes, and then ecosystems, then later stage, the cost of it is of course very much lower, because you just have then to care and maintain the system itself, which is structurally opposing to the conventional agriculture, which is then looking at indeed making the farmers dependent, at least in belief, on those products. So that's a starter. Here we've been working with one of the biggest tobacco and cigar producer worldwide. They are producing cigars for themselves, but also for most of the big brands. If some of you are smoking cigars, you may know Romeo and Juliet, and then Partagas, and then every other big brands that are using the service of these people. It's a family business that actually gave a lot of wealth to this family. And then from that on, we have had to start engaging in setting a context from where actually we were actually starting working with them. What were their operation about? So we're talking about actually large-scale tobacco production. These people they have their own land, but they also have, they work with producers, small producers. And so the owner just like came up and just wanted to start, transitioning the system. It turns out that he had followed the foundation course, which was a very big help for us, because we didn't have really to struggle in explaining what is the whole thing about. So it's about, transitioning the fastest as possible and the most organic possible. So we make this actual tobacco regenerate. The starter is, what are the principles? Here we have the 5 main here in bright colors, orange, yellow, and etc. That are the basics that we need to actually apply regenerative agriculture. We won't really engage further in what these are, but in this one we add the 3 other one, which is actually add trees as much as possible to accelerate the whole ecosystem restoration in itself. It's like thinking like, if Mother Nature is having tree naturally in primary forests, like why aren't we able ourselves to actually reproduce that in productive systems? As if some people ask you and tell you humans are intelligent, I'd say, yeah, to what level is this intelligence executed on land for farming? Then the context, of course, but also the commitment of of the whole team that would receive the actual transitioning toolbox, I'd say. At the heart, of course, it's microbes that play a key role in carbon sequestration, and this is where we have been started, and this is what we're going to show you today. Tobacco in itself has a very long history culturally, actually. Here, I mean, tobacco got discovered by the Spaniards when they first came to Peru, and from that whole picture you see like how surprised they felt, and then later on it became a whole industry. It's not only cigars, it's also cigarettes. It has a whole context of it which needs to be understood. And so also the social side of things that we had to consider is the context, which means like how the whole thing is produced. We won't talk about salaries and incomes, but this is a very labor-intensive industry, at least in these parts of the world, in Nicaragua. And to start off, we have been structuring the whole project in this main five parts that it's a structure that we use, so we make sure we have the maximum success in transitioning our systems, because you have no two chances to start to transition a system considering the current let's say prejudice that most conventional farmers and mindset has regarding what is called organic and now regenerative. And we're going to try to cover these five parts indeed that represent 6 months of work, but in now like somehow 40 minutes left. So the context was indeed we had twice the amount of rain compared to the actual averages. So we have been asked to do some anticipated transplant date. The farm, the whole company had an existing organic regime. This is interesting. We're going to look at it. And we had to compare to organic practices and conventional, of course. And then later on, starting to actually harvest at 60 days. This is the classic for tobacco. Talking about agronomy, this is a real strong cluster we have, because we need to engage in what are the current understanding of the actual farming ways here. So we have worked and observed yields, costs, which is at the heart of any large-scale production, and then cost of fertilizers and cost of phytosanitary, and there we go. So yields, we have observed just a -3% yields, which is statistically somehow not really relevant or meaningful in terms of the actual product that they are finally selling. And here you can look at this picture where we have been assessing and then evaluating with the local agronomists and engineers that what was the actual production on land. This compares to the actual conventional here, that you can actually see the different of shapes and colors of those plants, and also the widths coming up. We are talking here about a slightly higher yield for these actual quote-unquote conventional practices. I remember the owner entering the field itself with a previous picture here that he mentioned, and he claimed like that was wild to see such a strong tobacco that we've produced. So in terms of how did we do that, of course, the scientific methods is really important. We have measured what we call the useful leaves to harvest, which means the leaves that can be used and later to indeed roll tobacco. It's a minimum of 15 inches. So we've measured the number of those leaves, but also the height of the plant itself. As a result, here in the pink boxes, we can see two data, the height and the number of leaves harvestable. And as you can see, we have been reaching nearly the same amount of leaves that could be harvested at that time. So remember here, we were talking about 60 days harvest, and here the measurements have been done a little before the harvest. Sorry. And there, the second data is the height. You'd see that indeed the total height of those plants were somehow smaller, but yielding a very decent amount at, I would say, equal of what they were producing. And this data is very important because it has a link to the actual first quality of compost that we've been using when we first started this transition project. We will have a look at that later. You will understand how important it is to have an actually good quality compost, which is based on also controlling all the input or resources that you use in your compost. That's going to come later. In terms of fertilization, this is where the heart of the conversation may be with conventional farming, or actually mainstream large-scale farming. We have been able to look at costs, comparing what it costs to us to have very microbiologically loaded compost and then use it at field, whether it would be just like solid forms or drench and then foliar for using the compost extract and compost teas. We can see that our costs are very much lower than what you can have either in conventional on the left part of the screen or on organic, quote unquote, regimes. We've been using only natural solutions, bioagents, and of course, microbiology. That's a little bit of a comparative of what the type of product that they've been using. So they call that organic. I call that just like use the same existing product, paint it in green, call that organic, and then put that out and sell it probably 50% higher price that you'd pay a conventional or synthetic product. On our side, on the right, I was mentioning we've been using microbiologically loaded compost, vermicompost, bokashi, and bioles, which are also products that are branching out from the compost itself, very useful, we recognize, and also bioagents to stimulate the microbiology and then the let's say the symbiosis relationship at rhizosphere level and plant health. What were really the actual protocol in terms of the actual fertilization regime? As I was mentioning, we had like these three main tools, which is solid compost, but also compost extract / tea inoculated at drench, used with bioagents that I was mentioning previously. And also for the phytosanitary approach, we've used organic products that they were already having that also helped to have beautiful results in terms of plant health, and then how little they were impacted with actually pests and diseases. We're going to look at that later in this presentation. So talking about pests and phytosanitary, this is where the farmer starts to sweat and be scared, just like asking, oh, how will we be protecting our crops for our upcoming revenue streams? And this is also what we've been also working at that scale. The farmers have field monitoring, and we've been using this. So we had a weekly monitoring of the incidence of those pests and diseases, and we could witness that the total number of pests that we had were lower than theirs. So here you have two sorts of pests and disease established here. So on the left you have like more like fungal disease related, and then on the right you have more like insects and worms type disease, and then flies and then white flies and then aphids and all these kind of things. On our side, we just had like 7 in total appearing on a very acceptable levels. Sorry about the definition and the numbers here, but 7 in total that were then compared to 11 on their side. So let me go to the next slide here. So you can see here, this is the same monitoring, the same structure of monitoring the pests and diseases. And here you can see that instead of 7 that we had, these people had on their conventional and / organic a total of 11. Now I'd like you to look at these 2 red boxes that we're going to look right after. We see a surge in this aphids impact, and this is related to the surrounding management of the actual plot where we're working, and we're going to deal with this from an ecosystem point of view. You guys will see. So in terms of cost, again, as much as we had less impact and we were very, let's say, live monitoring, we had the capacity to substitute or reduce the use of those products. Here, really like plant-based phytosanitary repelling or plant protecting product. And here as well, you can see that the numbers of our costs were very decently reduced. Now, reviewing the whole cost itself, we can just like look at how much did it cost us to produce this regenerative tobacco here. So those percentages shows that we are pretty competitive in terms of the structural cost. The next conversation would be the workforce to execute that. And this is where the conversation just like that take its next step, and how do we scale that up, or a topic on which we have also already worked. Now, engaging in ecosystem design, which is also very key to transition any system. So we will look at it from the larger picture in terms of farm design and see what we've done and its results, then zooming in from compaction itself to soil bulk density to the results on soil microbiology. So here, in terms of design, you remember that we had this objective to create ecosystems, and here you can see that the farmers and then the whole engineers and agronomists had the good idea to set some cover crops before, and then you can see that we had decided to keep these cover crops on the central part of the picture, right picture. On the left part of it, you can see as well that we have been starting to design and then set up a let's call that servicing trees and then crops, where we had put a whole set of plants and bushes and then plants and then graminea as well. So the idea was to recreate an ecosystem where the tobacco could grow and not damage the rest of the cover crop as long as it was necessary. Also, we have engaged in having some companion planting with the tobacco, which here you can see on the left picture, we have Canavalia, which is a legume. It has been really helpful in terms of like misleading the pest and disease, quote unquote, to go chew on a very much more palatable crop and keep our tobacco safe. On the right side picture, you can see as well that these service lines where we had put all those servicing corridors, that we see some sorghum emerging that were actually the shelter of a whole life, including sheltering and keeping the pest in these zones and not coming to our tobacco. And we're going to see that with numbers. Later stage, they've been also just like diversifying their strategy, and here putting some sunflowers in the same like regenerative tobacco. This is second season. Now back at these 2 dates and the relationship with ecosystem itself. So you see that here on our plots, as much as on their plots, you see that you have a surge between 1 day and 5 days later, and this is linked to a very simple fact. The surrounding fields were covered with a cover plant, as Elaine would say, and they had been plowing the whole surroundings. And right after the plowing, we had a surge of those aphids coming into our plants. And you can see that then the trends went up until the plants could be actually supporting the aphids themselves. So what does that say in terms of ecosystem and in terms of restoration and regenerative of any type farming? Well, you need to have an ecosystem surrounding your crops, so you make sure that you feed everyone and you give a home to everyone, because if you don't, well, then this pest and disease will come to your crop. So now talking about compaction, we could witness a massive decompaction effect on what we've been doing. So more 178% of depth compared to the conventional practices, which is also had a very, very strong relationship to the plant health itself. We don't want compaction. And so we've used this beautiful tool, and we've again applied scientific methods to just compare pairs with pairs and make sure we had a very reliable data. So compaction, we have been asked when we started, did we want to plow the whole field again and then recreate this compaction layer? Of course, we said no. That's why we've worked with horse. It's very typical in these zones of the world, very light indeed tool to actually just work where we would actually plant our tobacco, and then at a later stage, then just find a way to actually deal with the cover crop itself or the cover plant itself. So you can see on the right at 65 days, right after, right in the time of harvest, what the rhizosphere were looking like. But in terms of numbers, here is the measurements. So you can see, you're comparing the left side of the chart and the right side of the chart, that the depth at which we could see our plants and growing is way deeper than theirs. A little detail here. We're talking about plow pan. This is on the right side of the graph. You see that we're talking about a plow pan at 15 to 25 centimeters, which corresponds indeed at the depth at which most of the plowing devices are indeed working the soil. We usually work between 10 to 30 centimeters depth, and this is what you see happening on the right side of the screen. So at the two depth at which we had the maximum pressure, 150 psi is the maximum compaction at which plants can grow their roots. So we could proudly say that we have restored the structure in itself. And this is now confirmed by the soil bulk density measurement, where we see here on the left side of the graph the soil bulk density compared to theirs on the right, in less than 20 days, which means less than 1 month. We have been seeing that the whole soil structure were suddenly more aerobic compared to theirs, which is also linked to the return of organic matter, but of course as well microbiology. Coming on to now microbiology. So the idea and the concept and the science and the execution at field tells us the two things here. We're talking about trophic levels and functional groups that are indeed in symbiosis with the roots themselves, and that have a relationship with the type of biological succession above ground. So for the tobacco, we had a couple. We have found that what were targets were in relationship with the right side of the picture here. And so we came out with those numbers. Don't be scared. I know it's a little bit undigestible, but the one thing I just want to show here is that we've been comparing our fields with the controls that were organic, and then also the actual conventional. So we've measured at 50 days something, which is like a kind of a full growing cycle that also come to the main data that we can really highlight here. So on those three main trophic levels, we are higher, fungal to bacterial ratio, than the predators of those, actually the whole cyclers or nutrient cyclers, we'd say, of those bacteria and fungi, way higher than them, as much as protozoa and nematodes are concerned, which is indeed also a very strong fact that helps us to, quote unquote, correlate the yields and hold the soil health and the ecosystem down to the microbiology. Now talking about nutrients, this is a little interesting part here that we may like to engage, and we can try to look at the, let's say, the profile, the nutritional profile of all the solid compost that we have been using at hand. So here, without making it too much of a technical explanation, we can see that depending on what type of lab analysis you're doing, you have different types of results in terms of nutrient available. Guess for what? For plants. So of course this needs to be related with microbiology. We are here looking at saturated paste on the left and plant available mainstream tests that are to a certain degree relating to what is the plant needed at every second. So we will not engage in the methodologies of each of those. The one on the left is water-based analysis, and the other one use some reagents that are more or less strong, which engages us to think, are these reagents corresponding to what actually happens in the soil? We can discuss that, but the point is that these two solid compost have been at the core of the results that we have been finding out. And to a certain degree, this is what the soil nutritional profile are here looking like. So basically, we are comparing their plots with ours, and if we just look at the right side of the picture here, from a plant available point of view, we can see that we have some sort of a similar profile in terms of what is available and then how and when for the plants. So basically, we can choose which one we want as an extra indicator of soil health. On our side, we know that this is correlated to the microbiology itself as nutrient cycling for our plants. So that's also something that has been very, very, very interesting in terms of results. Talking about pH, because it's also part of the whole current, let's say, semantic on the conventional side of things. So we've been looking pH of our own composts, and then the supposedly boccacci that people were willing to do. We can see that pH here are on the left side of this boccacci is a little bit on the outside, on the edge of it, compared to our vermicompost. Point making here is that these boccacci, and as much as this vermicompost that we've been using, have then been diluted in indeed compost extracts and compost tea. So the pH indeed got lowered, and we also measured our compost extract pH, and so we were full in range for maximum nutrient availability for our plants. This has been also applied to compare the soil profile themselves with the pH data, and we can see here on the left part of the graph that in less than 4 weeks, our pH got really in the sweet zone, entering the sweet zone compared to theirs. Could have been interesting to see how high we went at the end of the growing season, but we were not there anymore. So, but here the point is also making a correlation also between one system that use microbiology and one system that doesn't. So people talk a lot like how pH is important. We have been proving that also the microbiology here has its role in correcting or just giving the plant what it needs at its at second per second, right? Continuing on, very, very, very strong part here, the actual phytoremediation. What happened? It's a very, 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 very interesting story. I was mentioning earlier about the difference of size of those plants, our plants and their plants, and we could find out that we had indeed a problem in the compost that they were initially producing, and we're going to see how. So when we first started and then transplanting our tobacco, the agronomists and then the engineers and then the field managers didn't miss the opportunity to tell us that we had a problem with our plants. And so we didn't lose that chance to tell them that they also had the same symptom here on their plants that were already also found out in the neighbors. You can see the leaf curling at the end of it, and this is due to the following two pictures here. Some of you may think and know and maybe remember what this 2,4-D is about and how this 2,4-D ended up in our compost, because the current operations were actually using cow manure coming from the neighbors, not from the owner's cows, because they had a kind of a target and a name to actually produce a lot of those. 2,4-D is an active compound that you find in Agent Orange, hence the picture on the left. It's a growth inhibitor for large leaves, right? Tobacco being a large leaf, well, we ended up with a tobacco with curly leaves, thing that we have been then using to show them indeed on a side analysis how indeed the current recipe were actually impacting the plants itself. So here you have two main compost recipes plus the bokashi that they've been using a little bit of the current compost that they were using. And on our side, this last picture where we've been using another vermicompost coming from another quality of manure, our plants were having no effect of leaf curling. What does that tell us? It's like, of course, the compost is super important. We could then take it to the next stage and see how much the plant were responding to whatever type of compost that we're using. Here you can see the two biggest lines here where the plants are the biggest are two types of vermicompost. That one was commercial that's called like the second line on the right, and on the left here ours that we've been using, and then comparing to the current type of compost. It was crucial to engage in this type of conversation to just then later at a later stage be able to phytoremediate our plants, which is like what it was looking like after 15 days. I would say that was a very challenging moment. We've been a little stressed about that, but we're so happy that could say that the compost quality, the microbiology in it, indeed also had a phytoremediation effect. It doesn't mean that it got rid of the 2,4-D, but at least it actually enabled to have very healthy plants. So from that on, we could enjoy that results, which is like 65 days after transplant, just right before harvest. Indeed, very, very happy to just highlight that fact that microbiology is linked to plant health. So the last part of it is how did we transfer the tools? And here we're going to talk about compost. That was the previous topics that we actually could actually work in. And then we're going to look at compost tea and the team themselves. So these indeed two pictures are showing what was the current state of the art before we came in. And on the right, this is what we have been then doing later. It looks like we've been kind of structuring and then making the operation tighter and then cleaner and more controlled. The right picture here is also adjusted with the recipe itself, because we couldn't use anymore this cow manure that was uncertain in terms of its quality and its indeed presence of 2,4-D. We could then, to a later stage, indeed take it to the broader, bigger level. To a certain degree here, we can say we're proud. This is the third machine we got our clients to, the third or the fourth machine that we got our clients to buy, so they can indeed later produce something that is actually called high quality and high level. So for that, we've also been indeed designing a whole new compost place for them that would just be able to receive the machinery themselves. We've been applying like standards of large-scale compost operations that just look at slopes, that looks at water drainage, that looks at buffer zones, and then all the 9 years of it, access to water, and then like storing for compost, and then storing of resources, so we could actually pretend to have a large-scale compost production from high quality. And we are very, very, very happy that these people could take that on and produce how much of compost they could. Making a point here, tobacco is a crop that also produces residues, a lot of residues. So indeed, using these residues then to upvalue that and bring it back in these people's supply chain, so they could actually produce microbiologically loaded compost or biocomplete compost, as Elaine said. In terms of compost tea brewer, we have also set up, we could set up a very, very interesting machine that was like set up here on a trailer. Why? Because we wanted to have these people just have the compost teas and compost extract the closest to their crops, and so with the help of these two geniuses in the workshop, we could recreate this beautiful machine that has, of course, aeration in it, but also water recirculation, and with some filtering devices, and also then out of it a tap that could actually speed up the transfer of the liquid in their backpack sprayers that is being used either for drench or for actually foliar extracts. So later, and probably the most important part of all that, is the team themselves that would receive the actual new, let's say, work frame or methodologies and knowledge. We make a very important point here in profiling the actual people that will receive this new, this evolved way of farm management and agronomic management. A very interesting, very interesting part on that one. That's the first time that we had to fire people. And I let you guess which of these people have been fired. There's nothing to see with the clothes they are wearing, but it's kind of correlated in a way. So indeed here, working with plant health engineers, and then production managers locally, and also in region, because in these zones of the world you talk about region. So that's kind of the result, the final result. We have then been happy to review the whole 5 parts that were initially being screened. In terms of the agronomical part of it, we can check yields, fertilizers cost, phytosanitary cost, and the pest incidence, for which we have very, very meaningful results, either lower cost and same yields in terms of productivity, productivity, and then yes, productivity. We can say very competitive so far. On the ecosystem side of things, we're important to review that, okay, farm design and integrated pest management is a key, as much as their consequences on compactation and then soil density, as much as the soil microbiology itself. So here we have been also ticking these boxes, and then can easily reproduce this at any scale. The third part of nutrition, it's also speaking about what tools do we have to make sure that we are giving the plants to a certain degree what they need during the transition period. Here we say that we wouldn't dare saying that you can transition the system entirely from day 1 to day 2. We need to pay attention to our plants and their nutritional needs when we do the transition itself. And then here talking about the actual phytotoxicity remediation that the microbes actually perform for us. And finally, looking at the tool transfers, which is part of the whole toolbox that we give. It's about making sure that the compost is well done. You have a lot of industries that have a lot of residues and that are not really applying state-of-the-art operational steps and monitoring in terms of the way we do compost, but also in terms of how much microbiology you have in this beautiful humus-like, made by humans type of solid input, compost. Also, as much as finding or offering a decent tool for actual producing, for the farmers to produce the actual liquid, biostimulating liquids that they need to engage in the transition process. And finally, super important, how we're capable to transfer the knowledge to the local teams. Here, you always have the uncertainty to think whether or not the team that receives the skills will stay in the business or in this company that actually we're producing. I mean, we're eager to transition their systems, right? So basically, this is the whole structure and results that we have been using. So this is what we do. I think here and now I can just come back to not the presentation, but myself. Just making a quick word. So yes, you can find us online with this data that I just showed. But the point is like just making a quick comment on how important is it to have the farmer understand that the transition is a process, right? It's not a product, right? We take a system from point A to point B, from point extractive to point regenerative in a way. Then the next step is about adjusting the system itself in terms of all the data and the tools that we're using for doing it. And then at a later stage, it's to maintain the system itself. And the last word, indeed, to close, and I'm going to finish on the gong, nearly 45 minutes. I'm just making a da-da-dun thing. Yes, we can upscale this. It's not a matter of whether or not it works. We have example all over the world that says that, yes, it works. It's about the willingness of the farmer to engage with us or any other consultant to define and find out, adjust their tools and their know-how to then scale that up. So when we think about scale that up, then we engage to the next step, which is machinery and then cover crops and ecosystems and all the rest of it. And at that stage, I'm like 3, 2, 1, 0. Carla, it's on you.
Thank you, Renald. It's like, wow, another wow. Thank you so much. And while we'll give you a couple minutes to drink water and recover a little bit, we're gonna watch a video from the school to talk about, sorry, okay, give me just a second. Okay, making sure, okay. The video gonna cover the October promo, and we're gonna give Renald a couple minutes to restore before we start the Q&A.
When we're talking about the soil, we're talking about the base of everything.
Even our health depends on the health of the soil.
All the sickness and disease leads back to where you live, how you live, and what you eat.
People don't want to use the chemicals, but they don't have any other way.
It's not a desire problem, it's a knowledge problem.
Everyone needs to have some awareness of what our Earth is experiencing right now and how we can make a big change.
I find that this information hasn't been taught to me, and I had to get off my high horse. And even though I have a PhD, I feel like I'm totally undertrained.
I feel like I'm learning more with this program than I have with in-person classes in the past.
I've taken classes on microbiology before, but this course really makes a difference in the way that a story is put together that unveils the relationships between plants and all those beneficial organisms that we just cannot see without a microscope.
If you're looking for something that does a deep dive into soil biology, this is it. It is just an incredible knowledge base and is really relevant to what's going on right now in the world.
Without it, the only way I could have gained this knowledge would have been by dropping my life and going to graduate school. And that just wasn't realistic for me. But Soil Food Web has made it possible for me to build a meaningful career in land restoration.
I was really nervous. I was going to put quite a bit of money down and not get that bang for my buck. But once I actually got into the FC courses, I was incredibly impressed with how professional they are and actually the level of education you receive. This is the career path I've been looking for in the biological community, and I was having trouble finding.
If you're interested in joining the soil revolution, now is the perfect time. We've listened to feedback and requests for intensive training in compost production and microscopy at an affordable price point, and we've created a new training package that really delivers. With the all-new Consultant Career Starter Package, you can register for the Soil Food Web Foundation courses with Dr. Elaine Ingham for just $3,199, saving over $1,800. You'll receive over 40 hours of lectures and quizzes delivered by Dr. Elaine, and access to the Soil Food Web Community Forum, where you can interact with hundreds of farmers, growers, and budding consultants from around the world. You'll also get Stage 1 of the Consultant Training Program totally free, saving a further $2,000. That's 26 hours of mentor time dedicated to helping you make your own biological compost and develop your microscopy skills to the standard required to qualify as a certified Soil Food Web lab technician. You'll have the option to join our new 10-week Compost Intensive program, where you'll work in a cohort of 20 students through a structured weekly format, featuring live weekly lectures, followed by Q&A sessions with members of the mentoring team, and additional group sessions during the week. This new cohort format is designed specifically for folks who want to work and learn in a group setting, and who want the opportunity to make lifelong connections with fellow students and future colleagues. Students who have elected to take the 10-week Compost Intensive are making faster progress and having greater success with their compost piles because they're learning from each other's mistakes and feeling supported by the group. We've also developed a new 2-week in-person workshop designed to help folks complete their training much faster. Please look out for announcements about Consultant Training Program Accelerator workshops coming in 2025. So to recap, that's the Soil Food Web Foundation courses for $3,199, plus Stage 1 of the Consultant Training Program worth $2,000 for free. There are just a few places left in the 2024 registration cycle, so please don't delay.
At the Soil Food Web School, we are so confident in the quality of our courses, we proudly offer a 100% risk-free guarantee. Here's how it works. From the date of your registration, you'll enjoy a 30-day window with a no-questions-asked money-back guarantee on the total price you've paid for our courses. The only condition is that you cannot have watched more than 32 lectures of the foundation courses. Your satisfaction is our priority, and we stand behind our commitment to your success. Finance options are now available so you can pay at your own pace with a firm. We look forward to welcoming you to the Soil Food Web community.
Awesome. So, Renald, I hope you had the chance to get some water. Nick, Elaine, let's start the Q&A session. So, Renald, we know you talk a lot about how Soil Food Web is present on your daily basis routine, but can you explore a bit more what have been the key benefits of the Soil Food Web training to your career and lifestyle?
Well, yes, of course. as well, earlier I was mentioning soil health became an obsession, which means there is no farm conversation without mentioning soil microbiology and its relationship to plant health. Basically, if I have to put just retake the last let's call that result, the phytotoxicity remediation. I mean, I think it's a stronger enough fact to say that plants and microbiology co-evolve together on a symbiosis way. And if you don't consider that, well, you're missing a big part of the picture. So if we take that down to an agronomic posture, well, I'm asking, like, what university today is actually teaching about the relationship of soil health / microbiology and the plant? Another very strong, I'd say, fact, which is the result that we are showing up, and not only myself, is the actual yields in the end that we can just witness, right? I mean, we can say, yeah, we did it, but we kind of just being the translation between the plant health, this yields, and then at the end of it, you know, it's about money. It's about ensuring that farmers, no matter the scale, that ensure that first of all they have healthy plants, but that for us, secondly, it's a free tool. What do I mean with this? It's like Mother Nature has like set it up for us for, I don't know, billions of years. So I think it's time to and I do make a point here how important the teaching that is here in terms of the foundational course, the microscopy is important, so you can actually monitor what you have at field. Because if you base yourself on that soil microbiology thing and then plant health, it's like asking, so what is your monitoring tool? So you can actually figure out what is your soil health as a starter, and then later on, because we said that we transition a system, right? How do you monitor them and based on what data, right? So Elaine would actually probably support me and say how many scientists are here, just like ready to, I quote Elaine, poo-poo you, right, on the soil microbiology itself. But it's an indicator here. We've been building up a very strong framework that enable to monitor. We still can better it, there is no doubt, because this is what we do, humans. We observe and then try to reproduce on a very evidence-based scientific posture. So we make sure that what we do is good. Yes, we have still a long way to go. But as of today, I would just say that yes, soil microbiology is the essential part of your plant health. It's not just a chemistry-based approach. It's a biochemistry-based approach, which means the microbiology fulfilling and enacting its full function with the relationship, symbiotic relationship to plants. And that's my take.
I think that you nail it, and you touch on a very, very important point. It's about expand or see from the more broad perspective. And I remember one of the first things that I fell in love in my science classes in elementary school yet is that the basic soil food web, right? The plant, the rat, the snake, and all of that. And the way the educational system is shaped, including college degrees, is just like compartmentalizing, and the boxes don't talk among themselves. And it's past time to go back and connect all those tools, which I love this term toolbox. I use often with my students. I really think that we need to align all of that with the critical thinking and the farming experience. How we're going to make all of this work together in your favor to improve not just the plant health, but bring back all the nutrition value those plants have in the beginning. Because we eat for a reason, not just to fill the belly, but to bring all the nutrients we need. So I'm happy with your presentations. Your numbers are amazing. And I pass the word to Nick and Elaine.
And we need several hundred more examples just to be able to, the scientists, they want all this replicated. And so, yeah, well, I think we've pretty much got the system down. Really, Renald is showing us that, and the other speakers that you'll hear about in the coming days. We've got that down pretty plant. But, could something still happen? What happens when you get a really strange, ancient bacterium? Is it more or less capable? So many things left to do, but I think we've got the core down where it needs to be. So there's other people that need to take this to the universities and to the the county, everybody working at different levels of the scientific world, and with enough examples, just like Renald put together, the way Nick has been putting together things, let's get our heads together and say, okay, who's going to do what? Hope it works that way.
Yeah, and the regen egg field is growing in a fast pace, and there are new grants available on a daily basis. So I agree with you, Dr. Elaine. How can we make this all these brains work together and do a better use of that? Nick?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great. This space has been occupied very quickly with the Soil Food Web, which is right. It's kick-started this whole debate about soil and health, and one thing though, what it has done, certainly where we're based, and we mustn't forget this, is the biodiversity it gathers on the bigger picture. So if we get the soil right, it just transforms your biodiversity of your farm. So that's a consequence of the actions and the principles and practices that we're carrying out. And back to the education, when I came out of university and college, we didn't even do a lecture on soil, and that was our main medium where we were growing food. And it's only in the last 2 or 3 years where this space has become filled with more knowledge that we're starting to see courses or people actually talking and engaging and starting to understand about what they're missing.
Yeah,
beautiful.
If you mind, Carla, I'm happy to add up something here that Elaine mentioned. Indeed, what I say about science and the way we've been breaking the whole thing down in terms of agronomy itself, or soil science itself, it's like the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand, and then everyone is specialized in something so tiny and have his own result, and then brag about it, and then eventually, because the university you're working with is putting big money on it, because behind that you have patents and all these kind of things, right? So it kind of put a very scattered panorama, if I may. So then our job, indeed, and this is also a very human, social job, is to recreate an ecosystem in science as well, which means eventually finding universities, scientists that are eager to find out whether or not there is what they use as a beautiful word, which is called correlation. And back at the original story, here is what soil microbiology is doing. You can refuse it and enter what they call a cognitive dissonance, and they say, oh, that's not possible. I'm going to build up a parallel reality. And then the way it is, it's just like synthetic, soluble approach. Of course, there is a lot of other questions in terms of how easy it is to go this route in comparison with the other route that we are taking. And that is, I mean, to be very strict, there is no other road. Because, I mean, I can tell you from all the feedbacks that I see around me that most of the conventional, let's say, large-scale tree crops, bush crops, etc., are in a very decreasing trend in terms of yields. So that is correlated with what? With the higher use of these products. And to a certain degree, you're free to look at that trend as it is or not and refuse it or not. I would just end up here, my comment, which is like saying like, are you willing to hit the wall, right? Or not? But then these people would say, well, don't worry about it. We still have thousands of hectares which are free to deforest and then continue to execute and install new systems, right? And so when you think about that, it's like, okay, well then, to what degree can we enable ourselves to go to this strong fact, right? Because I mean, the Amazon here, it's first in fire and then two being deforested, like at huge scale every day. But then it's like about valuing as a community, as a human community, what is it that is actually, quote unquote, coherent with what the actual Mother Nature functioning is about, right? Go out, look at a primary forest. If you're lucky enough to just to have one around you, and then try to observe. Does someone actually prune the forest? Does someone water the forest? Does someone fertilize the forest? Well, the answer is pretty clear, right? So how much of this wisdom, quote unquote, or observations, quote unquote, again, that we can take back, right, and then adapt into the way we produce our food systems, and that was our.
That's spot on, Renald, and it's about, like Dr. Elaine talked to us about this constantly, and it's one of, in my perspective, one of the main lessons of the course is the system evolved together, right? So we need to understand how they better work together to adapt for what we need, instead of just keeping exploring. And you touched on a sad point about the Amazon. I was not expecting that I would leave the day to see the Amazon River drying. So it's really because we don't want to respect, we don't want to study, we don't want to understand how those systems work together. And that's pretty much what we do here in the school, to listen to the Mother Nature, on Elaine's words, and understand the message and adapt that to the field. And I think this guides us to the next question, which I'm going to take the liberty to jump on it, is that we know that the farmers are believers and tend to continue to adopt a system that works for generations. How do you, especially Renald and Nick, how do you guys approach your clients and demonstrate to them that soil food web approach is a great alternative? More specifically, how do you convince them to allow you to test the soil food web approach on their lands?
Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. First of all, there is a crazy trend happening at that very moment. So I have been told not to mention names, but you have the big ag companies and chemical industry now bragging about the fact that they are actually leading the regeneration trend. So one may ask, okay, based on what data, based on what practices, have you changed something special about what you're actually offering to the clients, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately here, Carla, we are talking about human behaviors. We talk about habits, and maybe some of you guys know how hard it is to change habit for us humans. It's like, when you go in a church and then you wouldn't dare go to the neighbor's church or the church on the other side of the street, because it's just like, the neighbor is gonna be saying, right? Anyway, going to the point here, I think from an agronomic point of view, your question for me resonates as, how do you bring the idea of risk mitigation for the farmer? Context being, most of large-scale farmers, those who are not billionaires, because here for tobacco, it's kind of the best crop ever. It's like very cheap to produce, and then the high added value at the end of it is incredible. How do you show and offer something to the farmer which mitigates the risk? What is the risk about? It's like, what if my old crop failed and then I lose thousands and I don't know, hundreds, millions of dollars, right? So basically, for me, the main approach that I have been doing forever is like, you engage in a trial. You have to define a specific zone which is representative of what the current farming system is about, and then make it representative enough so then you can execute the whole 9 yards, the whole full toolbox. And with this, I think very importantly, this is why both you guys at Soil Food Web School and ourselves are creating a knowledge base, which means then we can talk the same language. So that means there is a need to transfer, this new, somehow new. It's not that new. I think soil microbiology has been discovered in the same time as NPK and then its relationship to plant growth. The point being, like here, of course, chemical is something, or minerals is something that you can easily sell. Microbiology, to another way, it's kind of free, and then it's like ubiquitous in soil, so then there is no really market value. However, so the actual language is super important. And then to a next step, it's about having a very strong monitoring framework that come as a consequence of the same language that you're using with farmers, right? Because then you will be able to show off or to showcase your results, right? And of course, the last part is the yields. That's the last resort. So then looking at that, then you can show and say, down, now it's your choice, which is then, this is the very last kind of dogmatic related, I'd say, issue, because at the end of the day, a farmer can decide to go our route or the synthetic route. It's you know what I mean? So that it's like, and you still have the whole conversation about whether it's going to be profitable, meaningful, etc., which then brings it to the next level, which is like, how do you value that besides just the agronomic or ecosystemic perspective? What do I mean by this? It means like you either take it, you have three main perspectives or angle to look at the same thing, which is soil health, food productions, you name it. It's money, okay, money. Then two, you have the ecosystemic health, which is you are an environmentalist and you want to care for that, and the society as well, cost of it, right? I mean, now we have so much science, which is evidence-based and empirical-based, that shows that there is a relationship with human health. So then at the end of it, it's like, from what angle you take the actual the actual project itself, or I don't know, transition project itself, and what language you use with the farmer. To my advantage, I had a career in private banking before, so I know very much the stories about numbers and profit and all this kind of things. And you add it up to the rest of the two other pillars that are here, linking to one very much simple things. It's like, how do we care for our only home? The one Mother Nature that is feeding us all, right? So yeah, that's a little bit how I take it.
And how do you do that in UK, Nick?
Well, I think for us it's a mindset, isn't it? So it's getting to know where your farmer is and actually digging deep into where he physically is himself, because like everything in life, it's only going to work if they want it to work. And we are up against these big ag chemical suppliers that have got nothing to sell. This is breaking them. Certainly in the UK, it's quite good for me, because none of them drive up my drive anymore and pester me, because they know I'm not going to buy anything. So we actually had a farmer come to see us today, and it's about explaining the story, Dr. Elaine's story about the soil food web and how it works. And it's that haha moment where they go, gosh, yeah, okay, I kind of get that. That makes absolute sense. But being cynical, because these chemical guys will put all that, it won't work. You know, they'll tell you it won't work. It just can't work. You still need to buy fertilizer. So the results, this is for me is really important, is making sure that we got meaningful results at scale that actually stand that test of scrutiny by those farmers. And what we got to remember, certainly we're experiencing a lot in the UK at the moment, these longer periods of wet weather we're having, longer periods of dry weather we're having. Well, I've never seen that in my career, my early days of my career, but we're now seeing these longer periods of wet and dry. And with our soils being sands and silts, we're only 18% clay in our soils. We get 2 or 3 weeks of dry weather and we are losing crop. You know, the water holding capacity of our soils has diminished greatly. So it's about making sure we have these results, and we explain to farmers that, you know, this is how it works. But there's a real bonus here, because we've actually de-risked our business because of this weather patterns. We're not spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on fertilizers and chemicals, and our soils are improving. The biodiversity is improving, and our yields, they are now starting to increase. You know, we've hit the bottom and we're now plateauing and we're going back up the other side. So I think in 2 or 3 years' time, our yields will be as good as they were when we were using the artificial synthetic inputs, and we'll be out of that horrible green revolution farming processes that we were stuck in. So it's about showing farmers that they can de-risk, which is really important with our weather patterns. It's about the results, and like Renald said, taking maybe 1 or 2 fields only and proving the concept is absolutely critical, as long as they've got the right mindset, because we don't want to start applying all this biology if as soon as we leave they go and add some fertilizer, because we may as well just not bother. So it's about mindset as well for me.
Beautiful. Any other point, Dr. Elaine?
I need a few more hours in my life so I could sleep.
Yeah, I think that Renald and Nick did a great job.
They did. And I'm sure you can give them, give them calls or send messages to them about what they've found. It's always really nice to have the work you've done for your life vindicated. And both Nick and Renald, you get a souvenir too.
Yeah,
Gold star from Dr. Elaine in the live section. Well done, guys. Well done.
Yeah.
Nick, you were trying to say something.
No.
Yeah. The point is, like, there's also this thing of beliefs, and how does the belief influences as well, you know, the practices in the end. A very, very, very important statement or context analysis. It's like, as Nick was mentioning, there is a whole monster out there that has been doing a huge job in shaping the mindset. And what mindset it is? It's like the old conventional, by convention, and as of today, you know, and I'm making here a strong point about teachings that are here at Soil Food Web, probably what Nick does, what I'm doing, which is also providing a clear alternative, which means if you don't have an alternative out there being taught, how can you expect to have an evolution? Do you see what I'm saying? So basically working, I mean, people tell me that we are at we're the spearheads, right? Being the spearhead it's not an easy job. I mean, Elaine knows 40 years plus of being poo-pooed and then criticized, etc., etc. Nick as well, most probably Carla, you can confirm this. But I mean, for us, I mean, some people tell me when I'm having those downs and this kind of really hard, not depressing, but you know, contextual checks on what the surrounding farmers are doing, and they ask me, well, so why would you change? Why? What about you do another job? And I'm like, this is not a job that I'm doing. This is a mission. I mean, I have some sort of a faith in there, which is out there, that is a belief that indeed, let's make it dramatic here. If we're not capable to do that, which means we're not coherent with how the whole ecosystem functions, we're going to be gone. And eventually, at the end of it, this is the AI robots that's going to take over and just like be the, be the farmer and then the land stewards of the earth, right?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And it's the conclusion is that the mindset needs to be there. And for me, the proof that we are on the good track is that the big ag companies that we know the names are advocating they're doing this when we know they're not, but they are frightened for the change in the system. And this to me yells in whole capacity that's the future. Actually, we need to call that as a present, because we are changing the system. And that's what, for me, what stands out. And I appreciate each one of you guys that are watching us, because you are also doing your part. Just change your mindset is the first step, because with that, you're going to be able to expand your knowledge, start to applying this, and work as a community. That's where our strength relies.
And Carla, just one other point. Sorry, just quickly, if I may.
Please.
As I said earlier, you know, I've enjoyed 43 years, 43 harvests, which is great. But I can remember my father back in the 60s, and he would maybe only apply one little bit of fertilizer, no pesticides whatsoever, and would be getting 3-4 tons a hectare for his crops, and they would be a very similar price to what we're getting now. Now, when we look at what the chemical manufacturers have done, we're now paying nearly £1,000 a hectare for the chemicals and fertilizers to farm the geology that we're now farming. So it makes us to see where, in my lifetime, we've moved away from, you know, probably the sectional stages of the soil being not bad, pretty good, to kind of bare, you know, dirt. You know,
you
just
can't
nothing.
call them soil, so that's the worst thing possible in my book. Your soil isn't soil. You've turned it into dirt, and now you expect production.
Yeah, Carla, I want to add a little tiny thing here. So I guess it's about understanding the foundations of this whole agrochemical business in a way. Now, we need to understand, how do these people produce this NPK thing? It's a massive, really great business. It's like they're transforming the atmosphere into something that they can sell. Guess what the cost is about, right? In the atmosphere, you have probably 80% of nitrogen. Oh, these guys in Germany in these early days, the Haber-Bosch process, which is the one thing that they use, and then they come and just like convince you that this is what you need, with a little bit of fear in it, because you're going to lose your crops and you're going to die, right? So understanding the whole mindset behind this agrochemical industry is also eventually helping to get a posture with it. Just like, okay, you are indeed selling me air. Wow, that's the point.
Yep. Yeah, and I see the comments popping in the chat, and Katrina did an amazing point that if we educated everyone, the chemical companies will lose the power. And that's it, Katrina. That's what we need. That's what we want. And everyone has a major role on that. If you can talk about this, especially with the kids, if we can include this in schools curriculum, we're going to change this in no later than 2 generations. I'm certain of that. So
Yeah.
open your sleeves and go do the good work, right, Nick?
Yeah. Carla, I mean, everybody who has any input into leaving school or leaving university or college or whatever it might be, I think there should honestly be a rite of passage that they should study with Dr. Elaine. They should study and understand what they're doing, because when I left college, didn't understand the soil at all. It was just a medium to grow stuff. We had no idea what was going in our soils, and that's horticulture, market gardeners, whatever form. If you're growing food, this is what you need to be doing. Soil food web foundation minimum.
Nail it. Yeah. And I know that we have students, FC students advocating for that in schools in US. So you guys have our ultimate respect and keep us updated on how things are evolving. I'm going to push the questions to a bit more specific, because we can spend days on this topic, which I love, but we have more specific questions that I don't want to lose the chance to ask Renald. Renald, was there a noticeable increase in pests and predators like ladybirds, spiders, etc., and any predator-prey swings at the regenerative effects that took place?
Okay. Very interesting question here. So it relates to our monitoring.
The good guy predators versus the bad guy predators.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so I'm going to make a specific reference here to the monitoring that we have been given. That was the one that these people were using. And here, as I've been digging really deep into, understanding life cycles and all these kind of things, so you may have an educated and informed posture for addressing it. The first observation that I have found is like, when I was looking at there, I was like looking at the white flies. So this white fly is everywhere, right? And then you need to understand how the thing functions. And I think we have one of our colleagues out there that explains it pretty well. That is related to the actual plant physiognomy and how much of this juicy, sugary, easy, digestible plant sap that the plant feeds on. When your plants are indeed express their full potential, then they become more bitter, and then the flies don't come in. But point was, in the whole list of those bugs, pests, and disease that were there, some were here as a kind of pest or disease, but indeed, when I searched, these guys were actually predating on the white flies, and they were considered like pests.
Pests. You had to kill them. You whip out that toxic chemical and kill them.
Exactly. So then, as a starter, again, knowledge from an ecosystemic point of view, right? I mean, okay, another very kind of hard point is like, okay, well, if we want to now address this question, raises the point of like, do we have a reference point, right? Which means like, what was the ecosystem about before we even started, right? It's like meaning like, well, did someone actually write about that? Just like put the list out in there, and then, how much of those things is like in interaction with your crop? Wow, that's a big gap, I'm telling you. So back at the core of the question, the point here that I've seen is like, I'm back at the results that I showed. When the surrounding field has been plowed, then suddenly we had a surge of those aphids. You can say, did the plant got affected or impacted, whatever? This is another story. Apparently not, but there is a relationship with the surrounding ecosystem. Everything is an ecosystem. right? So then take that fact, now look at conventional, right? And look how ecosystemic this type of agriculture is. We talk about simplified ecosystem. It's not even an ecosystem. It's like it's simplified monoculture. Elaine mentions nature doesn't do monoculture, right? So monoculture, then surrounding, you know, shelter and food access for the rest of it. Here in the very spot that we were working, we still had some trees around, not deforested yet, river passing by, etc., etc. So then it kind of, I think it helped to have those results. Then I can go to these people next field that are just like growing this tobacco protected with mesh and all these kind of things because of the protection needs for the pest and disease, right? So I couldn't really witness to ladybirds and all these kind of things, but I've seen birds coming in and then picking the whatever worm or whatever little thing that was here in the field. So back at that, it's like, again, what is in your mindset? It's like, okay, everything that is not my plant is a threat to my thing. But then if you have this mindset, then you obviously engage in a conclusion that is related to the mindset, right? So there's no doubt for me, when you think about integrated pest management, of course, it engages you to design whatever you have, an ecosystem. This is what Gabe Brown is saying as well. It's like designing farms as ecosystems. There's no other way. Now we can think about the whole, let's say, biodiversity loss and it's this kind of things. Well, if it's lost, it's lost, right? If it's lost, it's lost. We will not be recreating new varieties of bugs or insects.
But I bet if we go out to the field all over the world, we'll find those missing, or those organisms they've all been killed, they're dead. Well, we can't ever get the biology back into this soil. Oh, come on. Look at how much resuscitation there has been in just like 2 or 3 years. You just have to start looking. You gotta, we gotta get all these people talking how it's not possible to do this, and make them shut them up by, tape across the mouth. No, that's mean and nasty. But what we've been doing to the microorganisms and the predators and prey species, that's unforgivable too. So we've got lots of good stuff to do.
Yeah, science spent tons of money on trying to figure out what's happening outside the planet or how to bring back mammoths. We don't need them, and whatever, but we don't know what happens below the soil. So it's, anyway, I'm not gonna go on that tangent today. I'm gonna follow up with one question that connects to the previous one, Renald, and it's directly to you as well by Peter. Thank you, Peter. How did the quality of the leaf compared from before to after when you measured Brix?
So that's a question I unfortunately I can recognize I cannot answer to that, because we didn't measure the Brix itself for one simple reason, because first of all, we've been being ballistics on the actual measurement from a laboratory point of view, and also our costs, right? And still, also it's a context-based unfortunate answer I'm giving, because for example, you want to work with SAP analysis or these kind of things, and in Nicaragua you don't have those laboratories. I don't know if you guys can see me, yeah? So maybe cut my video. So yeah, Brix later for tobacco, in a way, I can give a very an information here. It's a sort of empirical an empirical one. which is the texture of the leaves when you actually go in the field and then touch your future harvest. I mean, with the agronomists themselves and the farmers, the production managers, we could feel that the whole sugars and then sticky compound that comes out of the leaves were way stronger and way better on our leaves than the one that was that was actually grown next door. Indeed, their leaves were kind of dry. There was nothing really sticky to it, and then on ours, we were really like having our hands sticky because of the actual plant compound, which was then supported by one of the plant physiologists and then plant health and plant specialist here that was saying this is what you want for tobacco. You need to have this resin sticky compound that later has an impact on the taste of the tobacco. An interesting part here, just for the tobacco itself, and then tobacco itself is then fermented later, which means like microbiology again is actually transforming the whole tobacco compound itself into something which is smokable. But I can tell you one thing about Brix, which comes from another project and other colleagues that are here in Peru working with fruits, citruses, and they say the following: any crop that is grown organically has always a higher Brix level than the one that are not grown organically. So that's pretty straight. I like the idea of Brix being being another indicator of the quality of the crop itself as what? As a consequence of the actual agronomic regime that you are actually executing at the field. So then I'm sure Elaine is thinking the following is like that we need to continue to do some work and find out correlations with all these kind of things, and then we can take it from there. And that's kind of my only comment I can do here.
We've seen in the UK, we've just started measuring Brix over the last couple of years, and we've seen an increase in Brix, we're not quite at 10, but we've seen where all our weed species were quite high, and certainly higher than our cereal crops, because they're in that nitrate-loving soil still. Until we get rid of those nitrates, they're going to be healthy. It's healthier. But we've now seen that kind of crossover where the weeds don't look as, through a Brix, they don't look as healthy. They're sort of 7s and 8s, where our wheats are sort of climbing up and our cereals are climbing up to sort of 8s, 9s, 10s. We want to get into the teens, which would be great for us. But certainly on my last project I did for the soil food web, we had really great Brix way over 10, very, very quickly, once we started manipulating the soil and putting all those amendments in to increase the soil microbial activity.
Yep, we need to do things to make the conditions in which you actually take some of those Brix meters and try to use it for and across the ecosystems. So there's a little work of development there and defining all of the things that can cause a plant to shift their sap, and now you're not comparing grapes to grapes or polish to polish. So there's a fair amount that needs to be done there.
And obviously we need to watch weather patterns and sunlight, which obviously has quite a large impact in the result you might get on a different day.
Yep, they'll have a Brix of 5 on one day and you've done nothing, nature's done nothing except maintain this, and then you come out and take another, and your Brix is up at 12. And then the next day it's down at 5 again. And then something needs to be done to help deal with that situation.
Absolutely.
It looks like we lost Carla, maybe internet troubles. I can jump to the next question unless you had something else to say on Brix, Renald.
Yeah, a little comment. I think on this very point, we enter another level of complexity. So what does that mean? It's like the relationship between the photosynthetic process and then what is this with surrounding moistures? What is their relationship with the microbiology? Here are those like a lot of questions that needs to be raised in order to I'd say combat kind of mainstream beliefs that just like tells you like, well, Brix is useless because of the very little reason, the small reasons that Elaine just were mentioning in terms of a cloudy day or a sunny day or etc. etc. So it's another. We need more people that just are continuing to explore other routes, which like because it goes beyond. Indeed, we need to go beyond mindsets, existing knowledge, eventually wisdom applied to agriculture, and just like eventually ask questions that are not already raised, and then we're back at the church, and then when you raise very hard questions or crazy questions, you will be called an heretic. Anyway, that was my little take.
You're dangerous, you know that?
You are dangerous. You should be burned. You should be burned on the central place.
Stake. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just like that, you know.
So the next question we have is, could you tell us what motivated the owners to make the transition to this type of management?
Yes. Luckily enough, the owner had taken the foundation course. So I guess he got convinced by Elaine's the Soil Food Web offer. So kind of really helped me to just activate and execute the thing from an easier way. But I do think that this guy has some sort of vision for itself. I mean, I remember having conversation with him, it's like asking this question, why? Because he also got hit by his own education limitations. So he was off from a very big university next door that are been an industry of producing agronomists and then field technicians that are responding to conventionals, right? This university has been sponsored by big banana importers and coffee importers from the US. So it's a little bit interesting to see that too. And I do believe that the guy has also, the guy is a billionaire. So he also constantly how can I differentiate my product from the neighbors? Right, and so when you can claim that you have an organic cigarette to starters, and then later you have a quote unquote regenerative, right, one that can differentiate you on the market. I wouldn't mention the fact that like what does it take to produce tobacco in these zones of the world in terms of workforce and the level of salaries. But yes, I mean, this is a very strong differentiator factor, and then you can just look at the regenerative trend. I mean, I don't know if you guys are on LinkedIn, but now everybody's a regenerative something, which is like causes a lot of confusion, right? So I mean, for us, it's the next step, right? Which means like we need to define on a very stronger way what is it that quote unquote regenerative. This is also why we've changed a bit of the our label on the company. We call that restorative agronomy because this is what it is about. Yeah, so then I think the guy also realized that probably from an agronomic point of view, these guys are monitoring their data because this is what conventional agriculture is about, right? Which is like you need to look at your trends It's like how much you produce and then how much it costs you, right? I mean, we all experienced this virus story recently, and then there was no synthetic product available anymore to a lot of people. So then at that level, maybe just like hit a point in his head and it's like, okay, so then how do I make it if tomorrow there's nothing else that I can import in my country? And then it's just like a treat of my plants. So then it's a risk approach. I think it's a risk approach. That's just like realizing that you are depending on someone else out there to produce what gets you money. So that's that's how I analyze it.
So you mentioned something interesting. The owner of the property or the tobacco grower, he took the foundation courses as well. It seems like, Nick, I remember you saying the owner of the estate you work on also took the foundation courses. And then I've seen this multiple times. Why do you think these owners of the land are also taking the foundation courses? And is it happening before or after they start working with the soil food web consultants?
I think certainly for my boss, he was so intrigued as to what I was learning, and it kind of he was desperate also to find out more about it. And every lesson with Dr. Elaine, I was in the morning talking to him about what I'd learned that weekend through the foundation course and through the microscope course, and lastly my consultancy training. And he was just so intrigued that he wanted to do it himself. He was just absolutely driven. He's bought in to the transformation of his estate, and was desperate to do something different with our biodiversity crisis we had, with the economics of UK farming. So he kind of just wanted to feel it and touch it himself. So rather than me just telling him about it, he wanted to be a part of it. And so yeah, and he's currently, he's going to be doing the microscope course shortly. So he'll be trained in CLP, which is great, because I've now got a buddy who I work with, who I can bounce ideas off. He can ask me the questions, and I can, it's great to have someone who's trained, who's who you're working with. It's brilliant.
I may add up a little thing here. When I enter any of this project and I explain just the simple graphs of soil traffic levels, functional groups, and its relationship with the biological succession, most agronomists look at me and say, it makes sense. I get that. Right. Which is where we need to bridge back with the one education they had from the conventional universities. So it's like, it's kind of common sense in a way. You see what I'm trying to express here?
Well, we want to have people working out in the field where they can take your information in the lectures that you give them, but they can now go out and present them to a wider audience, because they usually leave out the chemical materials that we've been talking a lot about that this week. Instead of going out and talking about the different kinds of proteins and the different kinds of you name it, the different kinds of foods that if we just go in and say we want to bring all these organisms that will do the nutrient cycling so your plant can have what it needs. And the way we determine whether your plant has the needs being met, you're going to be looking at how rapidly they're growing, or perhaps, if there's a variety of numbers of we just need the data. We need the data to say, use this simple approach. You don't have to learn all of the chemistry unless you want to. But if you're a farmer and that's all you want to be, great, we can help you. And it's probably of more help to them than it is to people who are going to take the time to look at how exactly the cycle turns that nitrogen into nitrous oxide, into ammonia, into nitrate, into the plant, out of the plant, and around and around and around it goes. We do need to have more data, unfortunately.
Yep. So thank you so much. It's a good sign when 2 hours just pass by and look like more 2 minutes. Thank you everyone for being present on this webinar 3 in our series, Impactful Career in Soil Regeneration. Today we heard from Renald how he's revolutionizing tobacco farming with soil health. The replay will be available soon in our website. Do not forget that you can also rewatch webinar 1 and webinar 2. And next week, we'll be back on Wednesday. Do not forget that it's a different day of the week. 9 a.m. Pacific time or 5 p.m. London time, since US is getting out of the daylight saved zone. Next week, we're going to hear from Todd Harrington and how he's working with his consultant playbook with his clients. Is amazing numbers as well for us. In the name of the school, I really, really appreciate all of you guys that spending these amazing 2 hours with us. And above all, I want to say a huge thank you as well for our beautiful staff team, our co-workers, that my internet went down and you guys step in and made the webinar continue to go. Thank you so much. And thank you each and one of you that spread Dr. Elaine's word on Soil Food Web. Together, we can really change the system. Have a great week. Watch the replay of the webinars and see you guys next Wednesday. Thank you so much, Renald. Thank you so much, Nick, Dr. Elaine. And I open to you guys for the last tips of the day.
Come in and see our new house down in South, I always gum this up. Yeah. SC.
South Carolina.
Thank you, Carolina. See, I am getting older.
All of us. Renald?
Yes, well, I don't know where to take it, but as I mentioned, it's a matter of faith, and then that transformed into a mission. It's like, okay, everything with humans, it's not an easy thing. I guess the main job that needs to be done is changing the belief. I'd say for my own personal and professional and NGO that I have as well, statement, I'd say it's about changing the identity of humans. What does that mean? Identity, it means identity is linked to how you perceive yourself and your environment, right? And here I say we need to build up, we continue build up the relationship that, and then the belief that we are one and a single thing with our environment, Mother Earth, and you name it, so we can eventually build up nature-based church that is based on soil health and ecosystems and all these kind of things. So that's probably what I'd like to say.
Thank you. Nick?
Just very quickly, I think I said this last week, get your microscope out, find out where all those microbes are, test your soil, test your compost. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And actually, this stuff actually works. It really does. The skeptic in me thought, no, it can't be as easy as this. Surely we would have heard about it. But it works. Thanks to Dr. Elaine and all her team. So
Go team.
So once more, thank you everyone. Have an amazing weekend. I hope you guys are gonna absorb all this beautiful knowledge received today, and see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to click that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to stay updated with all our new videos.